Hello, my name is Sally and today I'm going to talk to you about blusher and bronzer using Look Fabulous Forever's range of makeup, which is specifically designed for older faces. So there is often misunderstanding as to where should we put our bronzer, where should we put our blusher, and if we're using both, which order should we put them on? So I'm going to try and give you some ideas. There's no hard and fast rules with makeup, but depending on whether you are warmer or cooler toned, I think it can make a slight difference. So if you are a cooler toned lady, you might think, oh, should I be using bronzer because that really is slightly warmer? Well, the Look Fabulous Forever's bronzer, it looks like this. It is really lovely. It's called Enduring Summer Bronze. It doesn't come out the colour it looks. It's not scary and orange. It's actually a really subtle colour. But what I would do if you are cooler toned is to use this after you've put your foundation or your Light Look Beauty Balm and your concealer and your powder on. Do that first so that you've actually got, which is what I've done. I've actually done my base, I've done my eyes and I've done my lips. So I've done everything except my blusher and my bronzer at the moment. So what you want to do is, rather than putting bronzer straight onto tacky face, so don't put your moisturiser on and think, right, I'm going to just give myself a little bit of bronzer, moisturiser, bronzer. Then you might find it sort of sticks a little bit and does look a little bit artificial. I always think it looks better if you've put a dusting of translucent powder on first, just because you're putting a powder then onto a powder. So what I'm going to do is show you where I would use it. So using your powder brush number 1, this is a really lovely big fluffy brush. You've got to think that you are creating the effect of a sun-kissed look. So you've been out in the sun and the bronzer is going to just highlight where you would naturally catch the sun. So take a little bit, you don't need very much. And what I tend to do, if you haven't got a fringe, obviously I've got a fringe so you can't see my forehead, but I would put a little bit just on the very top of my forehead. I then put a little bit just on my sort of temple area. And then I sweep it. You can do it in a 3 shape if you want to, so just on the cheekbones and round. So a little bit here and a little bit there, just to give a little bit of natural warmth. It's not as scary as it looks, it's just very subtle. But particularly in the winter when you're really looking a bit pale and you just need that little bit of colour, it will do that beautifully. But if you're cooler, the secret is to then put your Rosy Glow or your cooler toned blusher on the top. So you're not looking that you're wearing something that's too warm for your colouring. So put it here, a little bit under here, but the other place that I think it's really good to use is this area. We're often lighter in colour because we don't really get the sun to this area of our necks. And sometimes you look as though your face is sort of floating on your neck. So this will just join up beautifully, particularly if you are wearing, or if you're wearing a slightly lower neckline. I find that just a little bit of the bronzer will just create that little bit of warmth and colour without looking artificial. So just here and here, sweep it round. I'll talk about how I do it if I'm warmer after I've shown you how to apply the blusher. So with blusher, I'm going to use the Peach Cream blush. So the blushes are really lovely because they are creamy, but then when they go on, they form they don't just sink in, they form a slightly silky powdery effect. So if, as I said, you are cooler toned, what I would do now is to put my blusher on after doing the bronzer. So I'm going to do that now. assuming that I am cooler toned. So I'm actually going to use the peach cream blush, which works on both cool and warm as well. So let's take a little bit. I take it in my hands, in my fingers. Now, the thing about blusher is we were often told put blusher in and on the apple of your cheeks. So if you smile and put it on the apple of your cheeks, when you stop smiling, as you get older, everything droops a little bit and drops. So often the apple itself can end up being lower. And when you are more mature, you want everything to be lifted. So with your blusher, you can smile to start, but put it just above the apple, sort of on and above, so that it sweeps up. I try and think of it in a sort of teardrop effect, that sort of shape when I'm putting my blusher on. So bringing it up so that everything is slightly lifted rather than too low down. So the starting point is I always start in the middle of my iris, that sort of area, so you don't want it too far over. Start there and bring it up in a little sort of tapping motion. So I'll do the other side as well. So starting in the middle, not too low, a little bit higher than you might normally start. And with your finger, just place it and sort of tap it in. And the beauty of this product is you can add more if you want to, very subtly. So bringing it up into that sort of teardrop effect. So if you're cooler, this is where you'll be putting your cooler blusher on, so it will take away from the bronzer, but you'll still have the benefit of the bronzer underneath. So I'm now going to use my blusher brush number 2, and I hold this quite firmly at the bristles and I just sweep upwards in a sort of circular motion rather than too stripy. Now, because I'm warmer, what I like to do is actually very often put my bronzer on and put a tiny bit more bronzer over my blush area. I find that works. And if I'm doing that, I will use the blusher brush onto the bronzer rather than the big brush, because I'm just going to create, I find it gives a little bit more zing to peach cream blush for my colouring. Don't do this if you're cooler, but if you're warmer, I find that it's just a really nice, without going too dark, it just gives me a little bit more added warmth with peach cream blush, because peach cream has, as I said, got that little bit of pink in it. So just bring that up. So if you're warmer toned, you can do exactly what I've done. You can put your bronzer on after your powder, then you could put your blusher on, then you can put a little bit more bronzer over the top, or you can, in fact, put your blusher on and then do your bronzer in the same way that I did. So there's no wrong or right so much for the warm tone. So it's just a nice way with the bronzer to add that little bit of extra colour. The other really good tip is if you are in a real hurry, I don't know if you've seen the 5-minute makeup video I do, but you can, if you haven't got time to do eyeshadow, I love using my bronzer just over my eyes. Just sweep it literally into sort of that area, and it will give you the effect of an eyeshadow really, really quickly without having to worry about the time of putting an eyeshadow on. I mean, I wear eyeshadow most days, but if I'm really in a hurry, that's a really good tip with bronzer. So think of being the sun-kissed look for bronzer, where you would naturally catch the sun. And I also use it, as I said, on my neck area and sometimes just on the eye. Blusher is a little bit more precise, and it's quite nice to sort of bring it slightly more up. If you've got a very wide face, then what I would suggest with your blusher is you actually bring it a little bit more slightly more vertical, which can have the effect of sort of making the face look narrower. And conversely, if you've got a very narrow face, bring your blusher a little bit more horizontal that way. But otherwise, just do it in a sort of teardrop shape, starting from just sort of above the apple and going upwards. And for me, blusher and bronzer absolutely brings my face to life and makes a massive difference. As we get older, we lose that sort of the difference of colour, and you tend to be all pretty much one colour. So using a little bit of blusher can really make a difference in your makeup. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.